千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. The Tao in our world. So then the question is, why is the Tao not prevalent or has yet to become prevalent? Why is it almost faded or still remains unknown and therefore faded in our world? Previously, we have talked about the Tao being a very well time-tested philosophy for life. What if that is the case? Why is it sometimes unknown and sometimes misunderstood in the West? So one primary reason has to do with the language and cultural barriers. Many translations, as I have noted before, contain distortions or outright mistakes, but there is no way for the typical reader to know that. People may object when we try to be accurate, so it can actually go in the opposite direction. So for instance, many still do not know the real pronunciation of Tao Te Ching, and therefore may assume we are wrong when we say it correctly. There is no other place in the English language where what looks like te is supposed to pronounce like de. What looks like qing is supposed to pronounce like jing. And then of course, Tao isn't Tao at all, but actually Tao with the D sound. There are no other places, no other rules where people are familiar of this particular exception linguistically. And even when people get past the initial hurdle of being uninformed, they can still come up against the obstacle of misconceptions. I have a list here to kind of summarize the misconceptions. The list is arranged in the order of learning about the Tao, approximately. The top misconceptions are the people who know next to nothing about the Tao. And toward the bottom of this list, we have the misconceptions that they come across as they learn more. So the first one, I would anticipate that everyone is aware that Tao, a lot of people think, is primarily an Asian belief system. Now, the target audience of our meeting is certainly not primarily Asian. So the reality of the situation as we see it is that the Tao is meant for all human beings, regardless of background. After all, the Tao philosophy and all of its concepts are drawn from nature. If you are a human being, then you too are a part of nature, regardless of your background, ethnicity, or nationality. Related to this point is the misconception that the Taoism is a religion similar to Buddhism. It actually began not as a religion, but as a philosophy for living life. There are no deities or religious rituals in its original formulation. This meeting that we're in right now is proof positive that everyone, no matter who you happen to be in this lifetime, where you happen to come from in this lifetime, everyone can benefit from the Tao. Communication technology has brought the world closer together. It is what we are leveraging for this meeting. Every day, people all over Asia are studying wisdom from Western sources and deriving benefits from them. Therefore, you and I have all the reasons in the world to learn and explore the Tao with its Eastern origin right here in the West. So the Tao is for everybody, globally, worldwide. Number two, a lot of people think or assume that the Tao is about mysticism and spirituality. In reality, the Tao is about those things, but not only those things. It is also about living one's life. The Tao is practical and pragmatic. And those who are unfamiliar with Eastern thought have this assumption about the mystical, mysterious, and spiritual Tao. But now that you have studied it, you can see for yourself that there's actually a big emphasis on the best way to live. This emphasis is the practical, pragmatic side that I mentioned. And I know a lot of people are simply not aware of it. Number three, those people who are not aware, they also assume that the Tao is all about meditation and inner peace. So this is, again, an incomplete view of the situation. The Tao also encompasses the active side of life. And the misconception may be due to the frequent conflation of Taoism with Buddhist practices. I would say even Chinese people themselves mix them up all the time. Their thinking is that they will take whatever is beneficial to them, and they're not so worried about whatever differences there may be between different schools of thought. Now, in America, at least we have a lot of people who engage in activities like Tai Chi and Qigong. These are two examples from the active, dynamic side of the Tao. There's also activities like practicing rituals, ceremonies. The Tao is meant to encompass all of it, the passive side of life and the active side of life. Next, perhaps due to the media, perhaps due to cultural stereotypes, there is a widespread assumption that Tao sages are reclusive hermits who live far away from civilization. Actual Chinese cultural history practice is quite the opposite. Real sages have always been part of the community. They have always been of the people. Some Taoist practices definitely involve solitude and reflective contemplation. But just as many Taoists live ordinary lives and participate fully in society, the goal of the Tao is to find balance and harmony within oneself and the world around us. Number 5 in the list of misconceptions, Lao Tzu is against learning and knowledge. This can come up once someone learns more about the Tao, the Tao Te Ching, and Lao Tzu, perhaps has read up on the Tao Te Ching translations and has come across passages that seem to suggest that Lao Tzu is against learning and knowledge. Now, the reality of the situation is that what Lao Tzu has done is point out the limitations of knowledge. Intuitive understanding, intuitive grasp, feelings, hunches can be extremely powerful and sometimes more so than knowledge. We like to say that knowledge is power. We forget that intuition can be greater than knowledge. So if you were to look for reasonably accurate translations, you too may be puzzled that there are multiple passages where Lao Tzu seems to speak against learning and intelligence, like the current chapter that we're studying. So in reality, Lao Tzu is really saying that we need a better, more balanced view of understanding, which includes knowledge, learning, learning from books, but also includes exploration, also suggesting that we find the right balance between intellectual pursuits and that understanding that comes from the gut. The feeling of certainty that you get sometimes, where you just know that you're on the right track, and then subsequently you are proven correct. That is a part of your capabilities as well, and it should be strengthened through practice. Number 6, Taoism and Confucianism are in conflict. This again is something that one can come across when one learns more about the Tao. I myself have encountered this idea multiple times in academia. In reality, Taoism and Confucianism, they actually stem from the same root. Confucius himself was a dedicated student of the Tao, has spoken about it many, many times. And according to legend, he regarded Lao Tzu as his teacher. Now, in his own philosophy, what he developed from his study of the Tao, Confucius focused on social order, structure, and responsibility, while the Tao leans toward naturalness and individual harmony. The two, then, can coexist and complement each other in a beautiful way. Indeed, historically, people in China had drawn from both in their daily lives. Number 7 is yin and yang. In the West, there is sometimes a tendency to see yin and yang as representing good versus evil, like, light versus darkness, good versus bad. In reality, the yin and yang symbol shows complements. complementary forces in the universe, not oppositional moral values. When we talk about light and darkness, there is the association in the West of good and bad. Light is good, darkness is bad. In reality, we know we need both. We need the activities of the day and the rest at night. We cannot do without either one. So yin and yang symbolize the interplay of the complements. There's the activity and rest, as I mentioned. There's expansion and contraction. Neither one is good or bad. Either one can be good or bad. So these opposites or complements are interdependent. They are what we use skillfully to create balance rather than conflict. Number 8, the last one, Wu Wei, do nothing and do everything. There's actually a book with that title. So the people who have learned the concept, they feel that they're onto something that is different from everyday teachings in the West. In actuality, Wu Wei means unattached actions. It is often misunderstood. It is actually not inaction. It is not being passive. It is actually about being effortless, acting in harmony with the Tao. It's not literally doing nothing, although sometimes through observation, one can definitely see that in certain circumstances, it will be best to refrain from action and let the situation develop, but not all the time. Wu Wei is about avoiding actions that contradict what needs to be done, plus the clear understanding of when to act, when to refrain, and keep in mind, refraining to act is an action in itself. Stopping an action is an action in itself. So here we have a list of the misconceptions that keeps the Tao from becoming well known, or perhaps is the symptomatic of the Tao not being well known in the West. And hopefully in this one slide, I can provide a little bit of clarification in the right column. So part 1 of the summary, the great Tao has faded. Virtues become less common. It can no longer be taken for granted for people to be good, to be kind, to be fair. And therefore, it is all the more important for us to practice such virtues. We regain the Tao when virtues become second nature to us. Now, Lao Tzu will have much more to say about returning to the Tao in future chapters. But this is the message from the first part of this chapter. Number 2, as we have talked about, intelligence becomes a tool for deception. And I spoke of communication, technology, the smartphone, accessing the network. Nowadays, technology is what is probably the first and foremost improving Lao Tzu to be correct. Even though he wrote these words 2,500 years ago, well before technology as we know it today, because Lao Tzu was always addressing human nature and timeless principles, his words are reflecting our reality today. it is sometimes even a little bit scary how Lao Tzu can be so accurate in talking about our world. Now, one thing about deception is that it scales up. There's more and more of it as complexity increases. That is because within complexity, there are opportunities for the misuse of intelligence. And this is why we'll need to be especially careful with privacy and security, especially as we work on all the things that involve communication, all the things that have to do with the network. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.